Now then, viewers and friends, here we go again. Yet more of the lockdown videos where the beautiful spring allows us to crack on with all the self-reliant things that are part of life. Life is about the things you do in a general way. You know, life is about cooking, it's about growing your own vegetables. It's not about whizzing halfway across the known universe for a weekend. Anyway, we've ranted about that before. So this time we've got some veg plot, and the carrots that were grown in tubes are the first lot are put out or planted out. We've got some issues with a dangerous tree, and the video, it doesn't look very dangerous, but actually it was quite. We've got a battery rant about a battery. I put a set, or I helped somebody with a problem with some batteries about 3 years ago, and we're back to square one again. So we're not happy about that. The glass house door, that's moving on at a pace. There are various other things as well. The blog on planting trees is on the lowimpact.org website. We've got, I think, can't quite remember, I might be wrong, but I think we've got all the got some footage of the fruit trees and the blossom, which is great. Might be the next one, can't remember. So to new viewers, I would say this is all about self-empowerment, and the whole channel is about, really, it's about the choices that you make to prevent yourselves being slaves to the modern market economy. Do I need to say more about that? Now that we're in lockdown and all the things that you used to do you don't do anymore, maybe it's like, actually that was a complete and utter waste of time, and it was a smoke screen to prevent me from living my life. That's another rant over and done with. You do tend to get a few rants, but they're normally minor on this channel. So what I would say is, prevent yourself from being a slave. Yeah, life is wonderful, but you can be eased down the wrong route and suddenly it seems to be a problem. Yeah, self-empowerment. All I would say is comment and like. Yeah, that's all to do with YouTube and all that lot. But if everybody goes like, then suddenly we can have a better broadcast, as it were. Yeah, we get the message out more, rather than, oh, isn't it funny looking at this pussycat doing these silly things. We're talking about life and reality and not damaging the planet. So like, comment, and of course new viewers, if you would like to subscribe, that will help as well. So let's crack on with this video. There's lots of interesting stuff going on. So I marked and cut the tenons using a tenon gauge like that, and where are we? I've got to do the bottom rail. Now, because the bottom rail is a barefaced tenon, and this face needs to be in line with the, or level with the bottom of the rebate, then I've set this single faced or standard marking gauge up so that I can just mark out where the other side of the tenon goes, and then I can mark the shoulder and cut that off, cut that out. Whereas, let me turn this over. If you could see there, the shoulders are different, because effectively this shoulder has to come forward to account for the fact that there's the rebate there. So in one of my marking out videos, I talk about sight line, which is that, i.e. the sight there, and the setting forward line, which sets forward into there. You've got to just get your head around these sort of various things. It's three-dimensional thinking. Anyway, I'm going to mark this out and we'll crack on. There was something else I wanted to say about, it's about inertia. There's a lot of people I know who suffer intensely with inertia. And I do sometimes. Just depends upon the time of the year. And of course now it's spring and the sun is shining, it's not blowing a gale, and it's not pouring down with rain, so inertia is not quite so much of a problem. But a way round inertia is just do a little bit. It's like the university lecturer who said, do your assignments half an hour a day. That way you're breaking it down and it gives you more time to think about things. Yeah. So if you're having trouble with inertia, just do a bit, and then when you go to it the next day, then you move forward a bit, and you're just surprised how quickly your momentum will build up, and the enthusiasm for the project builds up. But you've just got to be careful not to go at it in gallops, as it were. Just be aware that you can run out of steam if you start going at 100 miles an hour and 12-14 hours from half an hour a day the week before. So just think about it. That's why I like to do a bit of this project, a bit of that project, a bit of the other. It's thinking time, it's dealing with inertia, and things don't build up. I mean, this door job has been sat there for at least, well, the glass fell out December, so it's been on the cards for a while, so that's not a long time, but it's just been one of those, it's on the list, it's not desperate, but it's a great thing to do what is necessary before it becomes essential and unavoidable. Let's crack on. So this is the top of the middle rail, and the glazing goes into there, and the previous top middle rail rotted out along there, so I'm going to put a slight bevel on that with this little block plane, just so that any water that does get there has got more of a tendency to roll out. And I might actually paint this with bitumen, just so that gives it that protective layer. Having said that, the previous door lasted, I think that glass house was made in perhaps in the 60s, early 60s. You can't really tell, but it's we've got our money's worth out of it. But put a bit of a bevel on there, just makes it easier. So I'm just going to, this is some bits of sweet chestnut. I'm just going to cut some rough squares and make some pins to put this hold this door together. So the blog on planting woodlands and the reasons thereabouts is on the lowimpact.org website now. I'll just see if I can zoom into the, where are we? But there you go. This was previously in the Small Woods magazine. And just here the three links to three of my other blogs. 1, 2, 3. There you go. That's some interesting reading for you. Now then, prepare for yet another battery rant. So we have the Variac, and the output of which is into a 12 volt fairly heavy duty battery charger, and it's on 12 volt number 1 rather than number 2 output, and we're charging about 6 to 7 amps at just over 2 volts into this battery. These are about 700 amp hour batteries, so you can work that one out. Just imagine that you need to go from flat, which will be a specific gravity of about 1150, up to fully charged with a specific gravity of about 1280, will take about 700 amp hours. Well, this is way below 1150, 1150, so it's going to take about 1400 amp hours to charge this up, if at all, whether it charges or not. Now, if you've got a battery system, standalone battery system, you need something to tell you when your battery volts is going low, and you need a little digital 2-wire voltmeter. They're reasonably cheap on eBay, and they measure from something like 5 to 90 volts or something, which is fine, and they're 2-wire, so you don't need an independent power supply to run them. I'll show you one in a moment. Yeah, so you need that, so that, say for instance, you put a load on your batteries, and if you're on a 24 volt system, you put a load on the batteries and the batteries go down to 22.5, you know you need to switch the generator on, or the charger, or what have you. Yeah, you don't just keep going until the inverter switches off and all your batteries are flatter than a flat thing, right? Anyway, let's just zoom in and have a look at one or two things. First of all, this is one of those digital meters, and it's got 2 wires, so the black goes to negative and the red goes to positive, and you can have that in the kitchen on the end of a reasonably long bit of wire, and it tells you what's going on at an instant. You don't have to guess. Okay, you can tell I'm a little bit frustrated about this, but there you go. Now then, I want to show you something. Let us switch that off, remove that. This is going to take forever to charge up, if at all it will do. Okay, we'll just ease the top off, just so that the aperture is larger. Right, we should have grey plates and a separator and dark plates, dark browny black plates. Okay, that's what we should have for a good well charged battery. Look at that. Can we get it to can we get the camera There we go. Look at that. That's horrible. That is all lead sulfate covering all of the plates. Yep. So whether or not we can charge this to the point where that lead sulfate is removed from the plates is a question that only time will tell, but I have my extreme doubts because areas of the cell wall are getting warm even just at 5 amps or 6 amps. So I'm going to give it a bit more of a go, like 3 or 4 more days at 24 hours a day, and see if we can bring this back. These were a really good set of batteries, so it's frustrating when that sort of thing happens. Enough said. So we've got it together, and I've just put those sweet chestnut pins in there. Hold all the corners together, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, he's forgot to put that in there. But I decided that a mortise in there is a water trap, so I've decided to put this in afterwards, and just because the rebates are fairly hefty, I can screw those from the back, and that way I can get everything painted up to keep the water out. So, you know, a hole facing upwards is fine for the first 5 or 10 years, but then the water starts to get in there, and the water can sit in that hole and start to rot the rail. So we'll do it that way. And the plum blossom is nearly over, but the apples are really coming into their own. Huge amount of blossom, and of course, as yet we're into a period of fine weather, so hopefully we will get a good crop. And this is a bay tree we've been growing on, and there are the flowers. No, they're not. There they are. And the pear blossoms out as well. Great, isn't it? Hopefully warm weather, plenty of pollinators, and no frosts, and we shall be well set for the winter. Where are we now? Mid-April, and we're still eating our own stored apples. Okay, we've got this board, and it's about 3/4 inch thick, Douglas fir, and this could quite well make the bottom boards of the door. But one of the problems is, shall we say, amongst the problems we've got here is the fact that if you use wide boards for the bottom of the door, then if they expand, then there are less gaps between the wide boards, and therefore they can create a pressure pushing sideways on the door as they expand in the winter. So you don't want boards too wide. And the second one is, where is it? There. Let's go and have a look. Right, now what have I been saying? It's a knot and it's black all the way on the outside. What is it? Can you see that? It's a dead knot. Hopefully you saw that move. Yeah. And so we're going to have to cut around those. So I'm going to have to work out how much timber I can actually get out of this board. It's a bit unfortunate, but there you go. Okay, so I've planed them up to a nominal thickness so that I can fit them in the door. That one's got a loose dead knot there. We might have to glue that back in. This one, we can trim this board down to there and there. So what I'm saying here is we're going to use random width boards. This one, we can probably get rid of that knot there. And this one, we can probably go to there. That one's got a waney edge, so we can trim back. And that one, we can work out what width we need to complete the job. We need 950 in total. And we've got 1200. So we've got some leeway. You can really get hung up on this, and there comes a point where you just have to go, right, let's see what happens. So I'm going to trim that one, and that one, and that one, and then see what we have to do with the other two. I was hoping to do a lap, like create a rebate on the bottom of that one, or that edge, and a rebate on the top of that one, and lap them over. But I'm thinking now that's going to make things even more tricky. And what we can do is, if it needs to be, we can put a covering strip on the back just to stop the breeze blowing through. But that glass house is pretty drafty at times anyway, so I don't think that's actually that important. So there you go, the trials and tribulations of using what you've got. Okay, let me just rake this sand in a bit. It's just a bit of loose sand that I needed to sort out. Okay, and of course the fixed rake. Now then, what we're going to do is the carrots are due to go out. So I want them in a reasonably straight line. But we don't need to be too OCD about it. So what I normally do is that. Okay, and these have been watered, and then we can just put those down like that. And if you see, the roots are just starting to come out the bottom, so it's well timed to put these out. And of course these carrots have been thinned once, and I will thin them again. In fact, that lot there looks a bit too thick, so let's just pull some of those out. A bit tricky, but you get the idea. Let's carry on. And there we are. One row in a straight line, so that if we do get a bit of bad weather, I could maybe put a couple of sticks in between the individual plants and put a piece of second-hand guttering over the top, just if we're going to have a bad frost or anything like that, just to keep the worst off it. There you go, all part of the process. There, so I've laid the boards out, and I think they're a bit tight because they will expand in the weather, so we're going to have to take a bit off the sides. Although it looks great now, it won't be, and it'll push these stiles off the rails, so we'll have to leave some gaps. Difficult to know quite how much, but I've got the brace in the back, so we can attach we can creosote this, then attach them there, there and there, attach the boards there, there and there, and of course as you get to the middle, you've got more support in the middle. So let's see how we get on. And look what we got here. It's that time of year. It's getting on. Can't really see the viewfinder in this strong sun, but see? Perfect. Time for some stewed rhubarb soon, and people might not be aware, but it's also an interesting thing that there is such thing as the rhubarb triangle. Not the Bermuda Triangle, the rhubarb triangle. We're getting some breeze in the camera, I think, and that's up near Wakefield in Yorkshire. So we'll just crack on again. Now then, do you remember this ash tree where half the crown had snapped out? Well, I remember saying at the time that looks awful thin. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Well, there we are. And what are we going to do about this? Well, it's obviously fairly dangerous, so when it starts moving, I don't want to be near the bottom, but it's hung on with fibres fairly well, and ash is fairly tough, and it doesn't look like it's diseased there. So I think put a strop on it and a winch and do the felling cuts and then pull it over. So leave a decent hinge And if it snaps over at the hinge or anything like that, it doesn't really matter because I'm going to be 20 metres away. So there we go. That's the project for this afternoon. Let's get it set up. Going to be about there. Yeah, it just started to move, so I scurried away with abandon. Now then, we need to get a good camera angle for this.
There we go. It looked safe. It was safe. But if there's anybody else around near it, it wouldn't be safe. I'll just turn round. I'm finding it quite difficult to see what's going on in this small viewfinder. But there's the turfer winch set up against that tree. Okay, let's go and have a look. Sorry to spin the camera around like that. Let's go and have a look. There's evidence there of a branch being pruned off. Obviously I must have done that at an early point. Maybe it was to protect an oak or something like that. And here's the top end of that tree. And if we can see, that hairy bit there was the bit that was still attached. So there was a reasonable amount holding on to it, but not excessive amount. So you wouldn't want to be underneath it, put it like that. Now, dare I look and see what the felling cut was like? Go on then. There's the butt end, and coming down, what's it like? Well, the hinge is reasonably parallel, the sink cut is nice and flat, and the felling cut is not brilliantly flat, but it comes up against the hinge, and then this side, that's where I stopped because it started to move. So this side the hinge is just a bit wider, but not excessively, but there was a reason to stop there. Yeah, I didn't want things falling on me. So not bad. 8.5 out of 10 considering the situation. Further to that, those of you who know us and been here and whatnot will realise that we spend a lot of time looking after habitat and building habitat, and my interest in trees and timber mixes in with that. And we're just looking here, this is that split face of the ash tree, and there we've got where a woodpecker was having a little bit of a poke into there. Yeah. So build a habitat and they will come and live in it. And of course it's beholden upon all of us to look after the natural environment and spend the fruits of our energy on rebuilding it.